How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Fam, and we are back with another FPL video, and today we're going to be taking a look at a series that I quite enjoy a lot, and that is the Tactics Talk series, where we're going to take a look at a game that happened in the past FPL game week. In this case, it's Game Week 3, and we take a look at basically the big teams, typically, or what would be, in my opinion, the highlight game of the week. And from Game Week 3, it was definitely Chelsea versus Liverpool at Anfield. I think it was a fantastic game. I think the first half was in particular one of the spectacles of the season thus far. Maybe a bit ruined by the red card, but hey, shouldn't be handballing it on the line. That's just my opinion. We'll go over that in the video as well. But I think it was a very hotly contested bout between the two giants, one from Merseyside and one from London, and it was quite intense. It was definitely intense. A clash of two styles, controlling from Chelsea, aggressive and offensive from Jurgen Klopp's men. And I think it was quite the game to break down. So we're going to do that for you in this series. And if you haven't seen these series before, or even if you have, make sure to hit that like button, because it's very in-depth and very tactically aware. And we get to see how FPL assets position themselves on the pitch, which is quite important. As well as subscribe to the channel if you are new or haven't done so already. And turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter if you want to keep up to date with any and all FPL news and releases across our platform. And lastly, give us a follow over on Twitch so that you can see when we go live for our FPL preview and deadline streams, which will be starting back up tomorrow for our Game Week 4 preview, 7 p.m. EST, and our deadline stream will be as normal 1 hour before the FPL deadline as is on Saturdays. There'll be a pinned comment down below to let you know the details on that as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at our partners for this year with Fantasy Football Scout. So if you haven't heard about Fantasy Football Scout, they have a fantastic members area during the regular season. It's £25 for the membership, and that lasts the entire year. And during the off season, they give a 20% discount. But if you have missed that discount, fear not, you can still get the membership for £25, and it's fantastic. You can see the membership area just behind me. You have a bunch of different stats that you can use, powered by Opta stats, and create your own custom tables. You have the Rate My Team tool, you have the season ticker, player comparison tools, a whole array of things that you can use to help elevate your FPL game. So use the link down in the description below so that you can get access to these exclusive tools to help elevate your FPL game. Sign up now. Now this is how both teams set up tactically at Anfield. Liverpool going from right to left, and Chelsea going from left to right. Now Liverpool, very familiar shape. We'll start with them as they are the home team. The Alisson in goal, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson at fullback, Matip and Van Dijk, which seems to be Klopp's favorite partnership, even with the purchase over the summer of Ibrahima Konate, he's a bit younger and has had some injury problems in the past, but will definitely come in sooner or later, because eventually I think Matip will probably get injured just because of his past history. But that's the partnership that he likes to go with. Then with the midfield three here, Fabinho as the anchor in that midfield three, Jordan Henderson more as the box-to-box, and then Elliott as well in there to be a bit more advanced, a bit more kind of number 10-ish, supporting the likes of Firmino in that creative element, allowing Mane and Salah to be more of like the inside forwards. You probably often see sometimes a 4-2-2-2 system, a little bit more narrow though, in the sense that you'd have Fabinho and Henderson kind of playing alongside each other and recycling the ball. Firmino and Elliott kind of shifting across, creating overloads on either sides of the pitch. And then funneling the likes of Mane and Salah, who like to get in narrow and like to get into the box in between the center backs to allow them to get more involved in and around the goal mouth, which is what they like to do a lot. Let me just put the shape back here. And it all kind of stems on the fact that that Jordan Henderson is basically just there to recycle the ball, whereas Elliott is more to recycle the ball as well, but also adds a bit of a creative element, and kind of is the one making the runs in and around the box and kind of popping the ball in and out to the likes of Salah and Mane and keep it ticking over. Whereas Henderson's more of the true recycling of the ball. If the ball ever pops out 30 yards out from goal, he's not going to take a shot. He's going to send it straight out to Trent, or he's going to push it back to Robertson, or he's going to try to feed Elliott, who's going to try to play Salah or Mane in and around the corner so that they can make a darting run into the box and hopefully get an attempt on target. And then Fabinho is going to be literally the true kind of recycler, even on set pieces, offensive set pieces. He was the last man back as well. Moving over to Chelsea, we talked about them last week, but we'll give you a refresher on that. Very same shape. The only change that they made was Conte comes in for Mateo Kovacic in this instance. Otherwise, the rest of the team maintain the same shape. Rudiger, Christensen, and Azpilicueta form this back three. When they're building out from the back, they typically spread quite wide. Reece James and Alonso hug the touchline. Jorginho can show for the ball and also can fill into the back four if he so chooses. And then Conte and Jorginho, they kind of make this like this M sort of shape here. And then in transition and in attack, you see the likes of Alonso getting high and wide, or Mount getting high and wide, and Reece James. And it's basically like this WM formation that kind of was stemmed originally from Sir Matt Busby's days when managing Manchester United, which is actually very interesting in that sense. But in terms of the wingbacks, I was actually very surprised to see that Alonso was playing. Being up against the likes of Mohamed Salah, who's quite tricky on the ball. Firmino can obviously funnel to this side. Elliott kind of often was playing in on both sides, but could be favoring Salah. Again, a little bit quicker than Alonso. Trent Alexander-Arnold easily can shift the ball out from underneath his feet and whip it across without Alonso being able to kind of address the situation. But I guess that's why they had Jorginho and Mount on this side as well, allowing for a bit more movement over there in terms of addressing the situation. So if Salah's in this position here, looking for the ball into feet, or looking for something to happen, and Trent's back here, they'll just say, Alonso, stay with Trent. Trent is decently quick, but not enough to blaze past Alonso, I wouldn't think, even though Alonso's quite slow. And then they have Mount's energy and Jorginho's ability to cut passing lanes off to kind of smother this side. And then on the other side, Mane's quite quick. Robertson likes to go in the overlap, and Reece James and Conte on this side are more than capable enough to keep up with their pace on that side. It would just be Firmino, which would be mainly due to Christensen having to keep an eye on him, basically. That would be the only kind of concerns there. And everyone else on Liverpool's team is basically just a recycler of the ball, which Lukaku can kind of harry. Havertz can kind of harry them as well, just running around the pitch. But all things considered, in the first half, we kind of got exactly what we were looking for. A very high intense game, situations where Chelsea were often controlling, Liverpool's press and counter press, which is quite important to talk about as well. So in a situation where, let's say, Alonso has the ball here. Rudiger would be over on this side. Mount would potentially be showing forward. Jorginho would be in this position. Christensen would be shifting over. Conte would be probably in this position. Havertz might be dropping off the line. Lukaku would probably be here. James would probably be trying to see if he can get a switch out on this side. And you would see the likes of Mane would probably be here. Firmino would be here. Salah would be here. Elliott would be pushed way up here. Fabinho would be right behind Lukaku and often made fouls or in and around this area as well. Jordan Henderson would probably be maybe on Havertz or Conte, one of the two. Trent would be high up as well. So even possibly Salah could even be on going like a man-to-man type of press on Rudiger. Matip would be in position to kind of help assist. Van Dijk would be here as well, and Robertson would be tasked with keeping an eye potentially just over the shoulder on Reece James. So what would happen is, let's say Rudiger plays the ball out to Alonso. Salah would come in for the press. Elliott would come in for the press. Trent Alexander-Arnold would come in for the press as well, and kind of close down the options. What's called a gegenpress, which is basically you send multiple numbers in and around the ball, forcing your opponent to make a mistake. Not necessarily, cutting off the options given you can lift the ball over players, but cutting off all visible option. So when a player sees 3 players coming in around him, all he's seeing is red shirts. He can't see blue shirts. If he could see through people, he would be like, oh, I can lift the ball over the likes of Elliott, an example. So if Alonso plays like a dinked ball up and over Elliott into Mount, he could definitely do that, but it's very difficult to execute when you can't visually see the target that you're trying to pass to, which is why it's so effective. So if Alonso has the ball here, they would basically press in. And Chelsea were often quite comfortable on the ball in this situation. Alonso is able to shift it inside to Jorginho at times. You know, there's going to be gaps somewhere if they can find it quick enough. Jorginho could then get the ball. Firmino tries to press him. As long as Jorginho's running towards the ball, he should be fine. And then he could play it in towards Mount, and then Lukaku can spin him behind, and they can go for a counterattack. But often Jorginho would keep things ticking along, play it back to Rudiger. Christensen could drop off or be a lot wider. Azpilicueta this time would probably go wide. Mane would try to run across the pitch. Ball would be played to Mendy, who can then shift it out to Azpilicueta. Robertson's then pressing in here. Henderson's pressing in here. And then Reece James could be off and in space, probably with Van Dijk in close proximity. So that's how they would kind of pass out from the back. If, however, let's go to a similar situation. So Alonso's going to be here, Salah be in and around this area. We'll say, Mane's over here, Henderson's here, Robertson's here, Van Dijk's on the halfway line. We'll go Fabinho somewhere in here. This is just like an example type of setup. So let's say Jorginho's in here. Firmino's got the ball with back to goal as an example. Reece James would probably be a bit more tucked in, maybe. Azpilicueta would probably be keeping an eye on Mane mostly. Christensen would probably be in to help. Alonso would be probably keeping an eye on Trent. Mount would be looking at Elliott, so on and so forth. So let's say Firmino loses the ball. So now this is where the press differentiates from the counter press. So what a counter press is the second you lose the ball in a situation where you're in your opposition's third, as an example, the attacking third, and you're able to win the ball back almost immediately before the opposition has a chance to play out or set themselves up to be able to play out, you can then catch them off guard in a situation where you have players already in familiar positions to attack, and then once you know that you're going to win the ball back, you're already one step ahead of your opponent. So Firmino, let's say, loses the ball, he goes to turn, and Jorginho strips the ball off him here. If Fabinho is able to press and cut the lane off of Havertz, Matip can push up. Van Dijk will shift across for Lukaku. Elliott goes and cuts off Mount, and Salah cuts off here, and Firmino sees the Conte. Jorginho can only go backwards, which often Chelsea would do, or they play it sideways. Jorginho is very comfortable on the ball, would shift, play the ball here. If they have to play it to Mendy, and then launch it forward towards Lukaku running to one side or another on the pitch, they would definitely do that. But Liverpool's whole idea is for Jorginho to look and try to make a mistake, and then the ball gets taken off him or it gets cut out in a situation when Liverpool can then recognize the situation, and then you have a position here where Salah can just... you could see the danger here. If Salah gets in here, Christensen's not coming across, or he's at least 1v1 with Salah. Mane's also coming in around here as well. Firmino the ball can be played into him and then dinked in around the corner to Salah as well. It's situations like that can be very, very dangerous. And Mane and Salah and Firmino, the front three, they've been so successful at that. Once they strip the ball back off the opponent and are able to successfully complete the counter press by breaking in behind the enemy lines, or a situation where, let's say, Rudiger isn't, he's caught a bit flat-footed or something like that. Salah's, even if he has a few yards behind Rudiger, he's going to beat him in a foot race, no problem. And this is kind of the danger area. So if Fabinho wins it back, Jorginho's not able to get it. Fabinho can just play the ball into space. If Christensen isn't aware, Salah can win that, and then he can have an attempt on target with his favorite left foot. So that's something to kind of consider when you're looking at the way Liverpool play. There'll be often games where Liverpool will look like they're not really doing too much, which is often the case when playing against teams with a low block. Then what they'll do is, if they do lose the ball, that's when they're the most dangerous. They can get the ball back and immediately win it high up the pitch, catch you off guard and score. or if they're sitting back and then they can play a longer ball with Van Dijk or Trent or Robertson, whoever it may be, directly into the front three, and then they're off to the races. So that's something to pay attention with Liverpool. But Chelsea mostly were very calm on the ball, very collected, and just were able to basically pass it in and around with their center backs, playing it to the goalkeeper, playing it out wide to the fullbacks, and controlled the game quite well. And even with the red card, I think that also favored Chelsea in a sense. It was a bit weird. Liverpool, the last thing Liverpool wants you to do, much like how Manchester United are as well, they struggle with teams who basically play very compact in a low block, kind of put all their numbers in this area here, just in the box. And it's very difficult because unless it's a set piece for Liverpool, which ultimately gets them the penalty in the end to nail it up 1-1, is you're not really going to have a cross threat unless it's on the ground. And on the ground can be quite easy when you have a lot of numbers, because it has to go through a few people's legs in order for it to get to one of the kind of the targets that they're looking for in the box. So that's kind of how they set up tactically. So let's take a look at the first goal, which was scored by Chelsea's Kai Havertz. Now, both the goals actually stemmed from set-piece plays initially. Liverpool's resulted in a penalty, but stemmed from a set-piece as well. And I think that Liverpool are going to be kicking themselves on this one, because I think it was very easy to prevent. Now, this looks a bit crazy, so we'll kind of break it down a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of time to break down, but we can definitely do that. Liverpool are playing in a zonal defense. Now, what does zonal mean? That means basically they have positions on the pitch within the box where if the path of the ball were to fly into that zone, they are kind of assigned, as it were, to go attack the ball. So as an example, we'll use Robertson, who's actually somewhat at fault for the goal, mainly at fault probably. If the ball flies in and around and is going to land in this area here, then Robertson has got to deal with it, whether it be with his foot, with his head, whatever it may be. If the ball is going to land somewhere in that area, he needs to be able to deal with it. Same with Van Dijk. If Van Dijk is basically assigned anyone who comes in this area that goes to attack the ball, he's got to come out and address that as well. Firmino, I believe, is in here as well, just behind Van Dijk in this situation here. He's kind of mainly looking at Romelu Lukaku, trying to keep him off Alisson so that Alisson doesn't get crowded out. Matip is just in front of Lukaku here. You can hardly see him, but they have the four zonal spots, which basically cover up. I'll just draw with a little bit of yellow, which is basically the idea is that you have this section kind of cornered off, and it's kind of split up into four kind of zones, as it were. Robertson with the front, Matip with the kind of the front right, Firmino with the front left, as well as Alisson in a sense, and then Van Dijk at the back left, as it were. Back and front being the posts. Alisson mainly has to be paying attention to the central areas, because if he can come out and punch and alleviate the danger, he can definitely do that, because he'll be the tallest guy on the pitch because he's able to use his arms. So that's kind of what they're looking to do with the zone. And then you have the likes of Fabinho and Mane and Elliott as well, who are looking to, if there's any runners, so as an example in this situation, you have Jorginho kind of just trying to block people off. He's not really going to go up for a header, but he's trying to block people off or cause kind of a sense like a pick in basketball. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically what will happen is in order to kind of slow a defender's progression down, a basketball player will go and stand up alongside them, allowing your player, the offensive player, to run around them, whereas the defense player now has to run around the guy that just set the pick and create that little bit extra space in order to get a header off, or in basketball's case, a shot, in which case. So what Fabinho and Mane are trying to do is basically slow the progression of Azpilicueta making runs into a 6-yard box. Rudiger making a really driving run, getting a lot of power and a lot of strength in behind his jump, which will also mean that he will have much more power and basically kind of force behind his header ultimately if he makes correct contact. And then you have Alonso, Conte, Mount. They're just in this position here. If the ball does break out, they have more than enough numbers to stop Salah. Christensen, I believe, was here. He's got a picture. and they basically have a 3v1. No one was in and around the halfway line for Liverpool. A lot were back on offense. Trent looking at Alonso as well, but Trent's also very good basically passer of the ball, long range passer as well. So if Salah does break and he does get the advantage ahead of Conte, and the ball comes out to Trent, Trent can just kind of whip a ball and play it into the channel, or just zing it along the ground, and then Salah's in behind. Mane can then break past Azpilicueta, who's not going to be as quick. He'll have to rely on Mount there. And then Liverpool will be off to the races, which is how they often score or create chances from goals. So they're actually, it's weird. Liverpool are at their most dangerous when you've either just received the ball or you have the ball, which is pretty crazy to think about. You think like Man City, they're the most dangerous when they have the ball, literally, which is more times than not. So how does the set piece transpire? Well, it's pretty simple, basically. Reece James whips the ball in towards the near post area, and it comes in. Nothing too special about the delivery. It's just a basic delivery, and it's coming into this front zone. Now, what about this front zone? Well, you think that Harvey Elliott, who's kind of trying to block off potentially a run from Alonso, but also has to be wary potentially of the ball being played into the zone, which he could be somewhat accountable for. But mainly it's Robertson. He's got to come out and recognize that the ball is going to be dropping in that area. And that's where Chelsea wanted the ball to go into. So the ball is played into this area. Robertson doesn't read it as well as what he could have. Havertz then makes a run from centrally out towards the corner of the 18-yard box. Has a defted flick header, which he it's curving in towards him. He then lifts it up and over. And Alisson, he cheated a little bit to his front post, so you could say that there's potentially an error there on the goalkeeper's part. He then lifts it. It's a lofted header, goes up and over, and then finds in and around the back post-ish area when it finally lands in the goal. A fantastic header from Havertz, but Liverpool will be kicking themselves because that's basically what zonal defending when it goes wrong looks like. Have a situation where Robertson's got an area where he needs to cover. He doesn't see Havertz, who comes from the blind side. Havertz then, with a fantastic deft header, lifts it up and over all the threats. Alisson, again, cheating a little bit, I would say, but ultimately can't get to it. And Alisson's a massive goalkeeper, so you knew the header had to be something special to beat him there. So I think a fantastically, worked goal by Chelsea in the sense that Havertz makes a run from the blind side, and the finish is fantastic. But Liverpool would be kicking themselves to concede a goal like this from a set play. Now, with that being said, let's take a look at how Liverpool equalized also from a set piece. Now, with this set play here, there was one change actually made by Liverpool, and I forgot to talk about the substitutions at the beginning of the series, so we'll talk about them right now. But Firmino came off with an injury, and Diogo Jota is the one that came on in his place. I think Firmino had some type of hamstring injury or knee injury. I can't remember exactly what it was. But he came off injured shortly before this set piece was actually won by Liverpool. And Jota might have actually come on just before the set piece. Later on in the game, due to events that you will see, Thiago Silva and Kovacic come on at halftime in replace of N'Golo Kanté, who had a bit of a knock. Kovacic straight swap. And Thiago Silva comes on for Kai Havertz for reasons that we'll talk about in just a second. Chalobah comes late on for defensive kind of, security because of events that happen in this on this set piece. Thiago is a straight swap for Henderson, create a bit more dynamism, a bit more offense in midfield. And then Tsimikas straight swap again for the likes of Robertson at left back. So, again, another set piece here. Now, if you look at the difference between the two set pieces here, you'll notice that Chelsea had a lot more numbers in and around the box when attacking. And Liverpool had a few more players kind of playing a bit more kind of blocking off runners in towards the box. Whereas Chelsea, you can see that when the ball comes in here, basically every player is in the box. Apart from Mount, who's sitting on the edge. Literally every player is in the box, and they are behind their man. Their zone is very deep, They're allowing Mendy a lot of space here to come out and punch the ball or come out and claim. And ultimately, the ball kind of flashes across the goal in a sense, and it's not actually reassuring. So the safety that you would think Mendy would have doesn't actually transpire that way. So let's see how it kind of plays out. So Robertson's on corner duty. He has an outswinger in towards the box. It goes past Jota. Mane goes up for it, ultimately tumbles over, and then the ball bounces here, like it bounces and goes towards Matip, who tries to put it back into the box, and this is where it gets a bit wonky. Matip then hits the ball, goes straight up into the air, and then it's just an aerial duel between Alonso and Matip. Matip then ends up winning it. It hits off the bar. It drops down. Jorginho tries to get in there. Rudiger tries to get in there as well to try to clear it. It bundles to Jota, who swings and misses. At this time, Reece James, who has left the kind of aerial battle to the taller people like Alonso and such, has shifted back onto the back line, onto the line of the goal, and Mane goes to hit the ball, and it then ricochets off of Reece James, and then there are claims for handball. Now what happens is when Mane takes the shot, because he pokes it with his foot in this kind of position here, the ball hits off Reece James's thigh, then hits off his arm. Now, in normal circumstances, that would be considered an accidental handball. However, with this instance, it has to be a handball for one reason only, and that's because of the way the rule is written. And the rule is, if you deny, accidental or not, a clear goal-scoring opportunity, it is... not only is it a red card, but they basically issue the foul. So a clear goal-scoring opportunity, if it is denied, that player must be sent off. So in this situation, yes, the ball does ricochet off of Reece James, and it hits him in the arm. If he had his arms by his side, it hits off his leg, hits off his arm, and then goes out, they would have been fine. But he actually, when they break it down, the ball hits off his leg, and your natural reaction is to kind of just hit the ball away in a sense. So what happens? The ball hits off his thigh, comes up to his arm, and you see a motion of his right arm to kind of push the ball out. And if his arm actually isn't there, the ball goes in the goal. Because the way it's spinning, the trajectory of the ball, it will go into the goal. If his arm was by its side, it probably hits off his arm and still goes into the goal, to be honest. So that is why they have to issue the penalty. And there was people were complaining that Anthony Taylor, and he came over and looked at the position, the still image. But you can see on the replay that the decision was right. You can see that he's obviously noticed that at least the referee would have said, "Oh, I think it's hit off his leg." The VAR have said, "Hey, look, this is hit off his leg, but it's also gone off his arm," and he looks to have then pushed his arm towards the ball. And they showed him the still of where it hits him on the arm. And then Anthony Taylor can deem from what he's seen that, hey, look, the ball has not only hit off, it's accidentally hit off his arm, but he then makes a gesture on the still to push the ball away, and had he not done that, the ball may have gone in the net, or almost certainly would have, which is why the penalty had to be issued. And because he is denying a guaranteed goal, basically, he has to be sent off as well. So it is a double punishment for Chelsea. It is quite harsh. And then Mohamed Salah finishes the penalty, as he often does, making it 1-1. And then Chelsea find themselves in a very difficult situation where they're down to 10 men. Now I'm just going to quickly show kind of how the formation of Chelsea kind of transpires and shifts and changes throughout the game, as will Liverpool. So Firmino's off the pitch, Robertson's in at left back, we got Van Dijk here, Henderson, and Salah and Elliott. So Liverpool is pretty straightforward with their changes. They did like for likes, nothing really too crazy about it. Jota comes in centrally. The front three will always rotate around anyway. Firmino came off injured. Henderson ends up coming off at around the 75th minute mark for Thiago, again allowing for a bit more dynamism in midfield. And then Robertson is a straight swap for Tsimikas. So again, straight swaps pretty much across the whole pitch. Jota does bring a little bit more goal scoring than Firmino does, but nothing really changes drastically with Liverpool's system. Reece James, who is the one who actually got sent off, will show exactly how the how that changes things. So we got Lukaku, who's playing up front. We got Mason Mount on this left-hand side. Christensen is the central center back. Jorginho is the other in the midfield four, as it were. Alonso at left wing back, and Azpilicueta here. So what happens is Reece James gets sent off. So he comes off the pitch, and off to the side he goes. And then you have this void kind of on this side. Now, Azpilicueta is someone who's dynamic enough to play right wing back. He's going to be a bit more reserved than Reece James, who's a bit more threatening going forward. So Azpilicueta then shifts over to right wing back. They then bring on Thiago Silva, who comes on for Kai Havertz. Now, Kai Havertz gets sacrificed as the attacking player. Not as kind of active defensively as the likes of Mason Mount would be. And then they just kind of set up in like kind of a front two or like a 1 and then a 1. Which is what was often found. And then Conte comes off as well for Kovacic. I think Conte was had a knock or something like that. And then you would see Chelsea kind of sit very, very deep in this position, slowly funneling their way back in. Very, very compact, very narrow. Mason Mount kind of filling in like a 3-5-1 in a sense, and Lukaku was basically left to his own to like get fed with the Wolves. And that was kind of the disappointing part, is because we wanted to see the Lukaku versus Van Dijk dynamic in that sense. But Chelsea just had to stifle, and they did have a few chances on the break because Liverpool are still susceptible to that. Lukaku getting in the channels and doing a bit of work, and then Mount kind of with his ability to run box to box was getting forward and kind of helping with that supply. And then very, very late on, Jorginho, I think it was Jorginho, or it was either Jorginho or Mount, I can't remember, comes on, and then Chalobah just basically funnels into they create a back four, and then it's just literally just just even more blockading, more deep lying defense. And then Chalobah just comes in. He's a bit on the taller side, so a bit more height. Jorginho was probably tired from basically having to run around and chase the ball for an entire half, so they went a bit more defensive on that front. And Liverpool probably be kicking themselves because not only did they concede not a great goal, Chelsea probably played them off the park throughout the whole 90 and was exceptional in the second half with 10 men. And they probably felt that it's probably 2 points dropped there on their part, that they needed to do a little bit better to get those points. But again, it shows the weakness that Liverpool, even with Jota, Mane, Thiago on the pitch, Salah being the threat that he is, Trent, Tsimikas has been great in recent weeks. Liverpool set piece threat with Van Dijk and Matip. They still sometimes have a bit of trouble against good quality opposition with breaking them down, which is going to have to improve if they want to beat teams when they're on the front foot, as an example, or teams that are going to cause a bit of problems for them when they have to break down these sort of low blocks. And Man United is the same way as well. It's only really City and Chelsea that I find that can do it on a regular basis to break these teams down, or at least get a point when they're up against it, basically, and can go on those sorts of runs as well. So Liverpool have obviously done it in the past when they won the Premier League title, but recently they haven't been able to show that kind of, oh, we'll just grind out and get the win anyway type of mentality, which they had when they were just basically blasted everyone and were able to win the Premier League a couple of seasons ago. So that's going to do it for this tactics talk. Make sure to leave a comment down below as to which games you enjoyed in the past game week and which one that you're looking forward to in the upcoming game week as well. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of Tactics Talk between Liverpool and Chelsea. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new or haven't done so already. It greatly helps out the channel. We greatly appreciate it as well. And turn those notification bells on so that you don't miss the release of any videos that go out here on YouTube. And give us a follow over on Twitter so you can keep up to date with any releases or any other FPL related news that we retweet over there, whether it be price changes, transfer news, and all that sort of stuff. As well as give us a follow over on Twitch so that you can see when we go live for our FPL preview and deadline streams. There'll be a pinned comment down below to let you know the details on the next stream as well. And lastly, use the link down in the description below so that you can get your Fantasy Football Scout membership. I think the The discount has run out as of now, but fear not, you can still get access to the members area, and you can always get the discount next preseason, but still take advantage of it. It is a fantastic offer. I think it's only £25 for the whole year, which is still a great offer in my opinion. You get access to all the different Opta stats, which you can customize tables based on your FPL needs, and you have all the different tools, rate my team, you have the fixture ticker, and a whole bunch more. So make sure to use the link down in the description below so you can get that and help elevate your FPL game. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, take care.